Yes. Okay. So we'll discuss about the concept of servlets in AEM. So how to create a servlet? What are the different ways to create a servlet in AEM? So when it comes to servlets, as learned in Java, I think hope you know about the difference between the methods like do get, do post, and do delete, and then how to create a servlet in Java as well. So how to create a servlet in Java? So in order to create a servlet in Java, so first we have to register that with the URL by using @web servlet annotation. And once you have registered that with the URL, so before in order to get the life cycle or any other methods of a servlet, so at that case you have to create a servlet in three ways in the Java, right? So in order to create the servlet in three ways, so anyone have any idea? Can you recall what are the classes we are having to create a servlet? Yes. So basically, you have three ways to create the servlet in Java. So one, we are having HTTP servlet, and second one you are having a generic servlet, and third one you are having a servlet interface. So most of the cases will be going for the HTTP servlet because of the other two disadvantages where the servlet interface is giving, as well as the generic servlet is also giving the disadvantages. So that's why in most of the cases we'll be going for the HTTP servlet. So for example, if you want to see how we can create a servlet in Java. Okay, suppose if I want to create a servlet in Java, so first I'll be taking the class, and then so one main thing we have to do is we have to implement either servlet interface or generic servlet class and HTTP servlet class we have to implement. So either if I'm going for implements servlet interface, so at this case what happens here is so basically whenever you are going for the servlet interface, by default, the interface contains public abstract methods, right? So we have to override all the methods. So inside this servlet interface, all the life cycle has been already written. So we have the life cycle, right? So init method, service method, and destroy method. Init, service, and destroy. So these are the these are the three main life cycle methods as a part of a servlet, and all this servlet life cycle has been defined inside this servlet interface. So as an interface contains public abstract method, so whatever the class that is implementing this interface, so that class should override all the unimplemented methods and provide the implementation. But in every case, so if you don't want to use the lifecycle methods, maybe for the debugging purpose we use. But if in some cases you don't want to use the lifecycle methods, okay. So init method, service method, and destroy method. I don't want to use these lifecycle methods. So at that case, still as we are implementing the servlet interface, we have to override all those methods. So that's why in most of the cases, we'll be not going for the servlet interface because we have to override all the unimplemented methods. And after that, in the second place, we are having one more class, which is generic servlet class. So if you are going for the generic servlet class, so this generic servlet class is a child class of the servlet interface, whatever the life cycle that has been written inside the servlet interface. So by default, the life cycle will also get to the generic servlet class. But in most of the cases, why we don't use this generic servlet class is the main part of a servlet is to get the HTTP to get the request and the response object, right? So servlet is a server side technology which takes the incoming HTTP request and process that request and generate your response back to the client. So that is the traditional model of the architecture. So servlet architecture. But when you go for this generic servlet class, this generic servlet class does not contain the request response model. You don't have the request object and the response object. So that's why in the Java we'll be not using the generic servlet class as well in most of the cases because it does not contain the request and response objects. So in most of the cases you'll be going for the HTTP servlet, so which is a child class of the generic servlet, which is extending the properties of generic servlet. So that means whatever the life cycle that servlet interface is having, so all the life cycle will also come to the HTTP servlet. So this, as this HTTP servlet is a class, so it also specifies some HTTP specific methods, like a put method, post method, a delete method, get method. So a lot of HTTP specific methods are also available inside this HTTP servlet. So we can just override them and we can write the functionality. So in this case, in order to achieve these advantages, in most of the cases, you will be creating the servlet using HTTP servlet only. So in most of the cases, by using HTTP servlet only, you'll be creating a servlet in Java. So when it comes here, so you are just creating the servlet. Okay, so if you want to get this servlet executed, so what you have to do, so what we have to perform we have to have an URL. So without the URL or without this URL, you can't execute a servlet. So in order to get this URL to execute the servlet, so at that case we have two ways, right? So in order to get the URL, so first one, you are having web.xml file, and inside the web.xml file, we have to map the servlet. So whatever the class we have created, so this class, we have to map the class inside the web.xml file. So we'll be having two tags. One is servlet mapping tag. One more is servlet tag. So inside that, you have to create the URL and you have to create an ID for this class, and you will be mapping. So that is one way, using web.xml file. And second way is by using the @web servlet annotation. So this @web servlet annotation is a new one. So where you can directly register your servlet by using this @web servlet annotation. Okay. So this @web servlet annotation, whatever the manual process we are trying to register, it will overcome it. You can directly use this @web servlet at the top of the class, and then you can give an URL. So maybe uh, @web servlet, and then backslash so demo project and demo first. Okay, so maybe this is the URL I have registered to this class. So with the help of this @web servlet annotation, so now when we hit this URL using the local host, so at that case automatically the data automatically whatever the data that is there inside this class, whatever the logic that is there inside this class, so that logic will be executed. So that is the main thing of @web servlet annotation, and that is how you can register your servlet using a path basic servlet. Okay, so not path, sorry, that is how you can register your servlet with the help of an URL. So this becomes an URL now. So right now, when we go for the Java, so we are having these three ways to create a servlet. So one is servlet interface, and second one is generic servlet class, and third one we are having is HTTP servlet. So these are the three ways we are having in order to create a servlet in Java. So when it comes here, so in most of the cases, as I said, HTTP servlet we are going. So in most of the cases in the AEM, we'll be not going for the HTTP servlet as well. So why we don't use this HTTP servlet? Because so in the AEM, so when we are having this HTTP servlet, we don't have any control over the methods. So this HTTP servlet offers a lot of methods. So put, get, delete, so a lot of methods it is offering. So as it is offering a lot of methods, we don't have any control over these methods when you are going for the HTTP servlet. So that's why as a part of the Java framework, so above the Java framework, Apache Sling has built two more ways to create a servlet in AEM. So if you want to create a servlet in AEM, so we have two ways. So first one is by extending Sling HTTP servlet class. Sorry, Sling safe method servlet. Okay, so Sling safe method servlet, and second one we are having Sling all method servlet. Okay, so these are the two ways where you can create an servlet in AEM. So by using these two ways, you can create an servlet in AEM. So one is Sling safe method servlet, and second one is Sling all methods servlet. So what is the difference between Sling safe method servlet and Sling all method servlet? So why we are going for this Sling framework, leaving the original Java framework servlet? So when you are going for this Sling safe method servlet and all method servlet, in the AEM, you'll have the control over the methods. So whatever the control that we don't get in the Java, so that control over the methods we can have. Okay. So we can have the control over the methods. So that's why we'll be going for the sling safe method servlet or the sling all method servlet, where we can get the 100% control over the methods. Okay. So if you are going for the sling safe method servlet, okay, so in the sling safe method servlet, you can only perform the get operation. Okay. So if you want to perform only the get operation, so at that case you'll be using the sling safe method servlet. Only get action can be performed. So when you are going for the sling all method servlet, so at this case you can perform the post operation as well. So get method and all the sling all method servlet means you can use get, post, put, delete, all the methods which HTTP servlets is offering. So you can use all the methods. But when it comes to this one, or sling safe method servlet, so at that case you will be only having the read option. Okay. Simply, if you want to have only the read option, so at that case you will be going for the sling safe method servlet. So if you want to get both read operation and write operation, so at that case you will be going for the sling all methods servlet. So that at that case you will have an option to all the methods get, post, put, delete. So all the method access you will be having when you go for the sling all methods servlet. So this is the way to create a servlet in AEM. So by using these two ways we can create a servlet. So in this case as well, we have just created a servlet. The main thing is, we have, in order, after creating the servlet, maybe you'll get an access to the methods and you'll have the life cycle of the servlet. But if you want to hit any servlet, either in Java, either in AEM, so what we need to have, we need to have an URL. We have to register the servlet with a URL, right? So without the URL, so whatever the class servlet class you are creating, so this can't be executed. So we have to create a URL for that. So in order to create an URL in the AEM, so how it is possible? Okay. So in which ways, what are the different ways we are having? Okay. So in which ways we can create an servlet in AEM. So what I'll do, so first I'll create a class and then you can extend that class. So maybe public class example. So I want to get only the read method. So I don't want to perform the, I just want to have a read method only. So simply you can extend the sling safe method servlet. Extend, extend sling safe method. Okay, so it will extend the sling safe method servlet. So public class example extends sling safe method servlet. So in this case, you will be having the do get method, and inside the do get method, I can perform a small write operations as well, and you can also perform, you can also retrieve the data from the server using the do get method. So at this case, inside the sling safe method servlet, you have just created a class. Okay, so in order to execute this class, what we need to have, so we need to have a URL. Okay, so we have to register the class with a URL or with a path. Okay, so in order to register the class with a URL, okay, so at the case in the AEM we have two ways. Okay, so AEM Apache Sling provide two ways. What are the two ways? Is first one is a path based servlet, and second one is resource based servlet. So what is the major difference between path-based servlet and a resource-based servlet? So if you go for a path-based servlet, so first we'll understand what does it mean by the resource-based servlet. So this resource-based servlet is bounded to a resource in the JCR repository. So in the JCR repository, which is nothing but CRXT, so we have the resources, right? So we have some, maybe a component is there, maybe a content node is there. So every path in a CR, every path in this JCR or every node in this JCR is referred as an resource in them. Okay, so you have to have an resource. Okay, so if you want to bound this particular servlet to a resource, that means to a path in the JCR repository, at that case, you'll be going for a resource based servlet. So maybe consider I'm having a component. Okay, so I want to apart. So most of the cases you'll be going for the component only. So if you want to attach this resource to a component, that means whenever the component is executed, so automatically I want to perform some logic. So at that case, with the help of the resource-based servlet, you can achieve that. So resource-based servlet means nothing but bounding your servlet to a resource in the repository. resource in the repository, which is nothing but inside the CRXT. Okay, so bound your servlet with a resource in the repository, which where you will get that using a resource based servlet. But consider every action we don't have based on a resource, right? So maybe in some cases I don't want to perform a resource based servlet, but still I want to create a servlet. Okay, I don't want to attach that to any resource in the CRXT, but still I want to create a servlet in AEM. So at that case, like an endpoint, okay. So in some we have an endpoints, right? So if you want to create an endpoint like a servlet, so at that case you will be going for the path-based servlet. So if you want to have endpoint servlet, so then with the help of the path-based servlet, you can go for the path. You can go for the endpoint servlet. So these are the two ways where how you can create a path-based. So these are the two ways which AEM is offering to create a to create a servlet in AEM. So this servlet, whatever the servlet we are creating, is a part of an OSGi service. Okay, so you have to create the servlet as an OSGi service. Okay, so that means first you have to convert your class into a component, and after converting the class into a component, you have to adapt it into an OSGi service. So that is the case you have to follow in order to create an servlet in AEM. So we'll see how to create an servlet in AEM. So we'll just see that with the help of a sample JSON response when you hit the servlet. Okay, says broke down. Okay. So in order to create a servlet, it is a part of the backend module. So where you have to use your backend project to create that one. Okay. So using the VS Code, so you can just go inside the core. You'll have source, main, and a package is already available for the servlets. Okay. So if you are creating an OSGi, so then you have to create inside the OSGi, and if you are creating a configuration inside the config package, you can create. So these are the two things manually I have created. Okay. So when it comes to the servlets, you have a separate package for the servlets. So all your project servlets can be written inside this servlets folder. So I'll just right click on it and then new class, and I'll use extends, sorry, demo servlet is the one I am creating. Okay, so public class demo servlet is the class I have created, and then as I said before, it is an OSGI service. So this is a normal Java class. Okay, so we have to convert this normal Java class into an OSGI service. So before converting this normal Java class into an OSGI component or OSGI service, so what we have to do is, so we have to either go for any of these two ways. Okay, so either sling safe methods or sling all methods. I have to extend either sling safe method servlet, or I have to extend the sling all methods servlet. So those two actions you have to perform. So right now, when it comes to the browser, your browser, whatever the browser we are using, so this only supports the do get method. Okay. So apart from the get method, you can't perform anything like post put. You can't perform inside the browser. Okay. Browser only supports the do get method. So if you want to perform all the methods, so then we have multiple tools like Postman. So where you can execute all the methods with the help of the postman. Browser only supports the do get method. So in this case, we'll be using the sling safe method servlet because I want to execute only the read operation. Okay, so to execute only the read operation, so at that case, I am going for the do get method. So sling safe method servlet. So simply extends. It is the class you have to extend it. So extend sling safe method servlet. Okay, so org Apache Sling API servlets.servlet is the import. So servlet dot sling safe method servlet should be the import. So as I'm extending this sling safe method servlet, so then at that case I can directly get an option of do get method. Excuse me, any question? Okay, so at that case you'll be having an so at that case what you can do is you can directly extend the override the do get method, which is already implemented inside the sling safe method servlet. So at this case you'll only have an option of the do get method. Okay, so at this case you'll be only having an option of the do get method. Okay, so right now when you are going for this one, so we have created a servlet, but the main thing is we have to register that with an URL. So in order to register that with an URL, so we have to register that with the two ways we are having, either path based servlet or a resource based servlet. These are the two ways we are having. So before registering them, so we have, as I said, except the Sling model, every backend module is a part of OSGi framework only. Okay, so that means everything is an OSGi component or everything is an OSGi service. So right now, I want to convert this. I want whatever the servlet we have created, it is an OSGi service. Okay, servlet is an OSGi service. So if you want to convert this servlet into an OSGi service, so how we can convert that into an OSGi service? First, we have to convert that into an component. So if you want to convert your normal Java class into an OSGi component, so how we can do that? So by using at the rate component annotation. So by using at the rate component, and then here inside that, in order to pass that as a service, we have to pass one more attribute, that is service attribute we have to pass. So inside this service attribute, you have to use servlet dot class. So whatever the Java interface you remember, so as I said, in three ways we can create a servlet in Java, right? So in that, first we'll be having the servlet interface. So what does the servlet interface contain? So this servlet interface contains the life cycle of the servlet. Okay. So what if you want to adapt the life cycle inside this particular one? So then you have to implement that life cycle inside the service. So service is equals to servlet dot class. Okay. So when I'm using servlet dot class, so at that case, the import should be Java X servlet dot servlet should be the import. And now whatever the life cycle that this servlet interface is having, so that life cycle is now adapted to this entire demo servlet class we have created. So that means init method you will be having, service method you will be having, and display method will be having. So that is one parameter we have to pass. Service is equals to servlet dot class. So after that, here we have one more property, immediate equals to true. So this immediate equals to true is nothing but whenever immediately after getting the class, immediately after our core bundle gets deployed, so at that case, immediately this class should go into the active state and it should be executed. So that's why we are using the immediate equals to true property. Okay, so you can just save the changes. And right now, you have created the component and you have created the service as well. Okay, so after the creation of component or after creation of the service as well, so we have two ways. Either I should go for a path based servlet, or either I should go for a resource based servlet. So I have to go for a resource based servlet. Okay. So in this case, if you are using this one, so we have to register these things. Okay. So either a path based servlet or a resource based servlet. So in order to register this thing as well, so we have two ways to register. Okay. So one is 1.4 version. So 1.2 version we are having and 1.4 version we are having. So in these two version, I can adapt to a path based servlet or a resource based servlet. Using 1.2, I can adapt to a path-based and a resource-based. Using 1.4 as well, I can adapt to a path-based or a resource-based servlet. So if you are going for a 1.2 version, so it is an old version, and then we have inside at the rate component, with the help of the property attribute, you have to register. Okay, so inside this at the rate component annotation, I'll pass one attribute called as an property, and with inside that property attribute, you can pass this information. So that is the older way. So if you are going for the 1.2 version, 1.4 version, so this and 1.4 version is entirely annotation driven. Okay, so you can directly use the annotation. So at the rate sling servlet paths, and the second one is at the rate sling servlet resource type. So one is Sling Servlet paths and second one is at the rate Sling Servlet resource type. It is entirely annotation driven. But if you are going for the 1.2 version, so it is old, and with the help of properties, one attribute we have to pass, and with the help of the property attribute, you can register in the 1.2 version. So first for the path based servlet, I will show you how to register in the 1.2 version. Okay, so in the 1.2 version, inside at the rate component annotation, so here you cross one more attribute called as an property. Okay, so property is equals to, and inside the property you have to write your uh, this is inside the property you have to register your servlet. So in order to register as a path based servlet, so sling dot servlet dot paths. Okay, so sling servlet paths is equals to, here you have to specify the path. So I'll saying bin and demo. So bin search demo is the path I am giving. Okay. So property, and inside the property, sling servlet path is equals to bin search demo. So immediately when I hit this bin search demo, so automatically this demo servlet class should be executed. So that means this do get method should be executed. Okay. So this is the 1.2 way how you can register your servlet. So sling dot servlet dot path is equals to bin search and demo. So that is the one, yeah, that is the attribute, that is the prop attribute you have to pass inside the component annotation. And inside this one, so simply I'll just create a JSON object, and then I'll return some information inside that JSON object. Okay. So in order to create a JSON object, so this JSON object, with the help of the JSON builders, we can create the JSON object. So JavaScript standard object notation. So where it is a lightweight response you can send to the browsers. Okay. So in the JSON format. So I'll just write JSON dot create object builder. So JSON dot create object builder, and then assign the statement to a new local variable. So job is the object I'm creating. So I have created a JSON object. So inside this JSON object, I'll try to add some data. So job dot add, and then you can pass two string information inside this add method. Okay. Path based servlet response from the uh, okay. So it is a path based servlet, and a response from the path based servlet. Okay. So you can pass one more information. So how much data you want to add, you can add inside this JSON object, and this JSON object you can send as an response. So in order to add, with the help of the object dot add method, so you can directly add the data. So software solutions, and then inside this one we can pass the information. Okay. And then we can pass this information. So whenever the user hits this particular path inside the browser, so what you have to do is you have to send the response. Okay. So in order to send the response, how we can send the response? We need to have a response object, right? So in order to send the response, so here we have we have a response object. Okay. So you can just simply use this one. So response dot. So if you want to print anything on the browser, so how we can print on the browser? What is the method we can use? Object dot method name. Okay, so to print the response on the browser, console.log will
Print
print
writer,
sequence. Yes, with the help of the print writer.
consultant.
Yes, with the help of the print writer, you can print the response on the browser. Okay, so instead of creating the print writer object, I'll directly use the get writer interface and a get writer class, and we'll try to print the data. So response dot get writer, it has one method called as an write method, and inside this write method, I will pass the JSON object, because whatever the message I'm having, so that message is inside this JSON object. So dot write, and then here I want to pass the JSON object. So JSON is the job is the object I'm having. Okay. So job is the object I'm having. So job dot. So it is in the JSON format. Okay. So it is in the add format. So we have to convert this JSON format into a string, because you can't directly print the JSON format in the browser. Okay. So job dot, in order to convert that into a string format, so job dot build is the method, and then after building it, you have to convert into the toString. Okay. So job dot build dot toString. So now the response from the JSON object will be converted into the string format. Okay. From the JSON object format, the data will be converted into the string format. So that is the one you have to use. Okay, so this is the servlet I have created, where I have created an path based servlet, and I have registered that using the 1.2 version. So by using a sling safe method servlet, because I only want to perform the read operation. Okay, so you have to build this one. So you can just open your terminal, because any changes you made inside the backend, you have to build that class. You have to deploy the project. Okay, so go inside the project. You are in the project, and you can the project mvn clean install minus p auto install package. Yeah, so once you get that, so just copy this path, and then go to the local host column 4502, and then you have to hit this path. Okay, so once you hit this path, bin search demo. So right at that time, whatever the response you are sending, so that response is a part of this servlet. Okay, so this response object is written here, and then you can see the response here. So here, whatever the path you can see here, so this is already registered. Okay, so if you want to hit this path, so basically, it is not an random path I have given. Okay, so whatever the bin this is something has to be registered inside AEM. So whatever the bin I'm using here, so this bin has been already registered in AEM. Okay, so the bin path is already registered in AEM. So that's why I'm able to hit this bin path. Okay, so some security layer we have to manage, right? So because you are having some random endpoint, so you can't directly create a random endpoint and hit that. So we have to manage this security. So in order to get that, so we'll be registering the first one. So whatever the endpoint you are having, so this can be anything, but whatever the starting of the path you are specifying backslash bin. So these will be allowed only for an allowed path. Maybe if I'm giving some random information, so XYZ I'm giving. Okay. And if I try to build it again, so at that case, if I try to hit the servlet using again XYZ, it is not possible. Okay. Because this is something, a layer which we have to register. And once we register it only, it will be available on the uh, server to hit this one. Okay. If you observe here, so it is forbidden. Okay, so forbidden means you don't have access, cannot serve to the request ORG Apache Slim. Also, you can't serve to the request XYZ search demo, because it is forbidden means you don't have the access. So if you want to register, maybe bin is already registered inside my console. Okay, so maybe for you as well, bin is already registered. So if you want to perform the action, okay, suppose maybe if you want to create a custom one, if you want to secure this custom endpoint at the start, so where can I do that one? So you have to go inside the web console. So localhost 4502, and inside the system console config manager. Okay, so OSGi configuration. We have one configuration got Sling Servlet Resolver. So inside that Sling Servlet Resolver configuration, you have to register this path. So Sling Servlet, Apache Sling Servlet, script resolver and error handler. If you observe here, So execution paths, when you are going for a path-based servlet, so inside these execution paths, if you are trying to create any custom endpoint, so inside this execution paths, you have to create a path. So right now the bin is already available. So that's why I'm able to serve the request. So similarly, apps, lips is available, apps is available, system is available. So I can use all these endpoints. Maybe I'm using an XYZ now, right? Suppose if I want to use an XYZ now, so I have to come to this configuration and I have to register the endpoint. So I have to use the XYZ as a path endpoint here. So right now that path will be executed. So whenever it is there inside the execution paths only, it will be available. So otherwise you can't execute this one. So right now if I go again here, so localhost colon 4502, as the bin is already registered, so that's why I'm able to hit this bin and it is returning the response. So that is how you can create an path based servlet and register that using the 1.2 version. Okay, so apart from the path based servlet, if we have one more servlet, right, which is nothing but a resource based servlet. So you have to create an resource based servlet as well. So this resource based servlet is nothing but it is bounded to a resource inside the JCR repository. Okay, it is bounded to an resource inside the JCR repository, which is nothing but a node in the JCR repository. Okay, it is bounded towards a node in the JCR repository. Okay, maybe if I go for October, US and EN. Okay, so inside this EN, if I go for the sling column resource type property, October components page component is one resource in the repository, right? Okay, so sling column resource type, that means it is a resource in the repository. So if I go here and now I want to, whatever the servlet I'm having, so I want to bound this resource to this servlet in AEM. Okay, so maybe not this one because it will be already available. So I'll go for the custom components we have created. So authoring component is the one we have created. Okay, so you can just copy this one, and then after copying you can just create it as an resource based servlet. So right now it is a path based servlet. In the 1.4 version I'll show you how to create a servlet using an uh, in the 1.4 version I'll show you an example of the resource based servlet. Okay, you can directly come here and inside this one at the rate sling servlet resource type. Okay, so inside this sling servlet resource type you have to pass multiple parameters. So just try to import this one, and once you have imported this one, so it accepts one mandatory property which is nothing but the resource type property it will accept. And here you have to specify the resource type. So resource type is equals to October components and authoring component is the resource type we have created. So maybe this is not the project we are using. September is the project. Weekend is the project, right? So weekend US EN EU or JCR content root container and container, and inside this container I'll go for any of the components. So custom text component I'll go. Okay, you can just copy this component, and once you copy this component, so you have to register in this way. So no need of this one actually. So you can remove this one. Okay, so right now in the 1.4 version, by using the annotation sling servlet resource type, I'm registering a path based servlet. And every time when you are using this annotation, it accepts one mandatory attribute, which is nothing but the resource types attribute it will accept. Maybe some selectors and extensions if you want to provide as well. For the response format, you can also provide the selectors and extension. Okay, so right now it is a resource type I'm using, right? So path based servlet, I'll change it to or resource based servlet. Okay, so response from resource based servlet. So right now this is the resource. Okay, so I am bounding the custom servlet I have created to the resource which is available on the JCR repository. So just save the changes and try to deploy the changes. Okay, so now it is deployed. So right now, if I want to hit this servlet, you can't directly hit this path, okay? Because it is not a path-based servlet. When it comes to a path-based servlet, you can directly copy this path and where you can hit the path. But when it comes to a resource-based servlet, it is bounded to a resource, okay? So if you want to access this class, you can access this class only with the help of, you can access this class only with the help of the resource it is bounded to, okay? So right now, if I want to execute this class, so this is bounded to this resource, okay? So this particular resource is bounded to this custom text node which is available inside the content node. So that means you have to copy this particular content node and then you have to go inside this local host and you have to hit this content node. So whatever the content node which is using this resource type property, so that any content node you can hit, okay? So any content node using this resource type property, you can hit this content node and then it will return a response. It will return the response of that particular class. Okay. So right now, this simple thing. Okay. So this is a resource we are having. So weekend components and custom text is a resource we are having. Okay. So it is a resource bounded. So you can't hit the apps folder. Okay. So how you can access this resource then? So if you want to access this resource, that means whatever the content node. So this custom text is a content node. Content we can use JCR content root container and custom text, right? So that means this is a content node. Why? Because it has this link column resource type property. So whatever the node is having this link column resource type property pointing towards this resource, so you can hit any of that node, so which will automatically activate this class. Okay, maybe if demo is using the sling colon resource type property, okay? So demo is using sling colon resource type property which will match to this data, okay? So that is weekend components and custom text. So at the time automatically you can hit this demo node as well, so where it will return the response. So whatever the node that is using the sling colon resource type property, when you hit that particular resource, so then it will activate and then it will generate this response. Okay, so if you want to perform some selectors and extensions as well for the response format, so you can also provide the selectors and extensions. Extensions, we'll be having txt extension, we can go for text extension, and then JSON also you can perform. So JSON, so these are the two extensions we can use. You have to mention that inside the double quotes. Okay, so similarly you can also provide the selectors as well. Selectors is equals to add comma. So just some random selectors I'm using. So what is the use of these selectors and extension is, so based on the selectors and extensions we can change the response. Okay, so maybe if when he is adding when he is performing when he is selecting the extension as add, so then I can execute one type of logic. Whenever he is selecting whenever he is in the path, whenever he is giving the selector as a sub, so then you can perform one action. Okay, so the response options as well, with the help of the extensions you can specify. So if I'm using a t.txt extension, so then the response will be in the text format. If I'm using a JSON extension, the response would be in the JSON format. Okay, so different actions you can perform based on the selectors and extensions you are having. So right now we have given the selectors and extensions, right? So when you are giving the selectors and extensions, so if you are not using them, so you can't hit the servlet. So every time you are using the selectors and extensions, you have to specify which selectors you want to give and which extension you want to have the response. Okay. Okay. So right now we have got the, so this is the selectors, right? So without giving any selectors and extensions, you will get a forbidden error because we have provided the selectors and extensions. Okay, so I want to get the selector as add an extension as JSON. Okay, so right now it is returning the response. Right now we don't have any logic based on the selectors and extensions. So that's why it will directly return the data. Maybe if I go for a sites console, so if I try to open a page, we can USEN or Marvel or any page I'm trying to open. Okay, if I click on edit, I don't want to get that inside the edit mode. So I'll remove this one. And if I hit enter, okay, so right now it is returning the response. So how it is returning the response? So this is a resource, right? Okay, if you observe the response, it is in the HTML format. That means we have provided the extension. So this HTML is an extension. Okay, if I want to get the JSON format, so then I have one more extension, which is JSON is the extension, one more I'm having, so which is getting the response in the JSON format. So right now it is only returning the page information. Maybe the entire container also I want to return. So all the data of the container as well I want to return. So then what I'll do? So here I have one more extension. I have one selector called as a model. So model.json. So when I'm selecting model.json, it is executing one more time. So based on the selectors and extensions, you can execute a small piece of logic and different response formats you can specify, and you can differentiate you can differentiate the way data comes from. So when I'm not using model, then when I'm specifying the JSON format, it is only executing the content node, JCR column content. So if I want to get the entire page information, so then I'm using the selector as model. So that's how you can differentiate. So that is the main use of selectors and extensions. So this is how you can create a servlet in AEM, and then you can these are the two ways. One is a path-based servlet and resource-based servlet, and that is how you can register in 1.2 version and 1.4 version. Okay, so any questions? Any questions from online? So assignments, have you completed the assignments? Any doubts in the assignments? Have given the assignments. So try to complete them. Try to spend some time on them. So on the OSGi as well as Sling models as well, I'll try to. Sorry, Sling models I have given, right? OSGi, from OSGi I have to give you Sling model. Okay. So any questions from online?
Not yet, sir.
Yep, okay then. So that's it from my side. Thanks for joining. Have a nice day. If you have any questions from offline, you can attendance. So, నువ్వు ఉన్న అన్ని సెషన్స్ లోకి వెళ్ళి నేను ప్రతి సెషన్ లోపల